All right, Rock Hill and the world. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time you're watching this. I'm Chris Corrado here with another episode on Rock Hill Video. Today is Wednesday, July 27th, 2022, 1:03 Eastern Standard Time. Before I start every show, I always like to say that I went to Winthrop University right here in Rock Hill. I studied mass communication with a concentration in journalism. And one of the things I learned while I was there was when you're reporting the news, you're supposed to report the facts, and you're not supposed to misquote people. And I know that there's a lot of people out there on big news stations that will bring guests on and bash them, praise them. We don't do that here. We give everybody an equal opportunity to talk about the facts and say how they feel. I don't give anybody extra time because I agree with them, and I don't talk over them if I don't agree with them. We've had debates on here, and I've always made sure that everyone gets an equal opportunity to talk, get their point across. We don't gang up on anybody. That's just poor journalism, in my opinion. The two most important things we got to do here is we have to report the facts and not misquote anyone. So today we have on Joe Collins. So Joe is out in California. So he's actually 3 hours behind us. Thanks for coming on today, Joe.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, just to start off with your early life, I see that you grew up in South Central LA. So, can you tell us about life growing up?
Um, it's interesting when people ask me that question because a lot of people don't really know about living in the inner city, and a lot of people think that things across the United States are even, it's equal. You got level playing field, and the actuality is it's not. Growing up in South Central Los Angeles was extremely rough. We got a high concentration of gangs and gang violence, extreme amounts of poverty, no jobs, education is poor where I grew up at. But I made it. After my house was shot up in a drive-by, my mother moved us to Texas, graduated high school, I served in the military for 13 and a half years. I got out the military to get involved in politics, and this is my second time running.
Okay. So, there's always movies about certain places and things, and sometimes it's accurate, sometimes not. So, for example, Boys in the Hood. How realistic is that movie?
That's spot on. It's dead accurate, boys and men.
Okay. I believe that movie came out either the late 80s or early 90s. It may have been, I believe it was the 80s, actually. So if you haven't watched it, check it out. Next question I want to talk about, anything you want to share about family life, hobbies, just your personal life, who you are.
Okay, personal life. I am a father of four. I have three daughters and a son. Our hobbies are traveling. We love to travel. We love to travel across this country. We love to go out of the country, go overseas. My kids love outdoors. So anything outdoors, we're definitely there. I love my district because we have every single Bay district. I mean, Bay City. So almost every city that will be in a 36th congressional district I'll be representing is on a beach. And so we have beaches with cliffs. We have beaches with sand. We have dirty beaches. We also have beaches with a lot of homeless people. But those are things that I plan on fixing. However, the district is extremely beautiful. So outdoors is our thing.
Okay. Yeah, some of my friends that have been out to California, they talk about how quickly you can go from the beach and swim in the ocean to driving up to the mountains and going skiing.
Yeah, you could definitely do that too. Like 33-minute drive. 33 minutes, you'll be wherever you got to be.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. Okay. Now I did read up on it, and you did just state it. You did serve in the military, so thank you, of course. And it looks like you did 13 plus years in the Navy. So what would you like to share about your time there?
The Navy was extremely interesting. Unlike a lot of people, I didn't join the military for my love of the country. I joined the military for the opportunity. And actually, I got in the military because I was working at Walmart, going to college, and a recruiter came into Walmart. And at the ripe old age of 18, I thought I was, putting my Mac down, but that wasn't the case. She called me the next day, asked me if I wanted to have lunch with her. And I went to the recruiting office, and next thing I know, they were offering me a job. And, you look at my life, I'm working at Walmart, I'm going to junior college, everything is great in my life. And I said, you know what, I think there's more out there. So I joined the Navy, and my love for the country grew. as I served this country in the United States Navy. As I traveled the world, I saw the luxuries and freedoms that we have and experience here in the United States that a lot of people don't. And I stayed in for 13 and a half years. I loved every moment of it. And, just like anything, it comes to an end. You got to make a decision for yourself. Continue to be mundane and allow yourself to change with the culture or get out and do something about it. And I decided to get out the military and fight for the people who are here, who deserve to be fought for every single day.
Okay, so you visit a lot of other countries while serving.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. A lot of countries.
Okay, you still feel we have the best opportunity all around here?
You know what? Even with the state of the economy, we still have the best opportunities. You got to pay a little more for those opportunities because gas prices, inflation, food, everything is going up. However, we have a lot of liberties here, and we'll keep those liberties if we fight for them.
Okay. So when Barack Obama was reelected back in 2012, I believe, I was looking at like the differences and demographics about who voted for whom, and I thought to myself, the Republican Party, they're gonna have to start appealing to other people other than white people if they're gonna survive in the future. So a lot of times, most races tend to lean, more to the left. But I noticed with those of African descent, they tend to overwhelmingly support the Democratic Party. Yet the past few years, I've seen that changing more and more as time has gone on. And why do you think that's changing? What experiences have you had?
In my opinion, I think that more Black people are leaning towards the Republican Party because you have people like myself who are actually in the communities, and we're bringing up issues that existed for a long time that people have been silent on. Black people in general are conservative in nature. The only difference is there is no Republicans in our communities that are talking to people on a regular basis, that are doing community outreach, that are there showing people the type of Republican leadership that they can get or they deserve. Democrats are there 24/7. So even though Democrats destroy our communities and people don't trust Democrats and they know they steal money, they know they look out for themselves and their family before the communities, people still roll with the Democrat Party because of the simple fact that they're there 24/7. But, people like me, we didn't get the support from the party itself, but people who are Republican, who are registered Republican voters, they give us the support to come out to the communities. And, if we're out there, they'll get out there and they'll do what's necessary for us to talk to people in the communities as well. And I think that's where that shift is coming from. But you'll see a real shift in Black people, Latinos, and Asians moving actually to the Republican Party if the Republican Party's leadership are the ones that are actually getting on into the communities and supporting us, support the mission of waking people up and showing them the type of leadership that they deserve and showing them the damage that the Democrats have done to our communities.
Okay. Have you faced any opposition or heat for being a Black Republican?
Yes, all the time, especially from Republicans.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Some of the reasons why is because Black people automatically expect you to be a Democrat, and so it's kind of like interesting or off-putting whenever you meet someone and they're Black and they say, "Well, I'm a Republican," and people are like, "Really, you're a Republican?" And they either talk trash to you or they ask you a lot of questions. Whenever you're Black and you're a Republican or conservative, people who have been in that movement for a long time, they expect you automatically to adopt their ideologies, even though the experiences are different, right? So I'm from South Central Los Angeles. I'm from the inner city. So a lot of issues that I faced growing up and even living in South Central right now, most people who have never lived in the inner city have ever faced. So they wouldn't understand what people go through. And so my ideologies or how I view things is extremely different than that mainstream Republican and conservative. And one thing that I cannot do is ignore my reality or the reality that I grew up in for the sake of trying to fit in to an organization who doesn't have that same experience.
Okay. Now, the reason why I reached out to you is I was on Facebook and I just happened to see one of your videos, and it was talking about some really fun looking times in California, but some other clippings of it not looking so fun. So,
Mhm.
what do you miss about California that you had shared in that video? That what do you miss about it? What do you want to bring back?
Well, California was considered the Golden State for a very long time, and right now it's not. And I think that a lot of Democratic legislators in California has done a terrific job in ignoring the real issues that we face in California. Crime is up, poverty is up, homelessness is up. You got human trafficking that goes on. I think Los Angeles is number two in human trafficking, especially among women and children. And Democrats have done nothing about it. And so what I like doing in my videos is showing the reality, regardless of how ugly that reality is. I want people to understand what is going on in these communities behind the scenes. They paint California as glitz and glam. You got Hollywood over here, you got celebrities, you got all the sports teams, and everything is great over here, but that's not the case. Even in our Capitol building in downtown Los Angeles, the Capitol building is beautiful, but where the sun doesn't shine is Skid Row. And you have street after street after street of people living in tents, and they live in tents in darkness because you literally cannot see it if you're facing downtown where the sun is shining. But we have a dark side of Los Angeles County that nobody is talking about, and this is the reason why we need more young people running for office. This is why we need to remove the older age legislators from office and replace them with people who want to, put forth legislation and do things to give people the opportunity to live their best version of the American dream.
Okay. So what would you say would be bothering you the most about what's going on in California right now?
Everything.
Okay.
I mean, I can't think of one thing
Okay.
that doesn't bother me about California right now. Some issues are bigger than other issues, but I mean, homelessness is up. We're at 14.9% homeless rate. Poverty rate, we're at 13% poverty rate. We have RVs and motorhomes on the streets, people on the streets, violent crime, robberies. They're up significantly from this month to last month, from this year to the past 3 years. It's bad out here. Even the state government is passing out, drug kits for people to be able to do drugs, quote unquote, safely. These are the things that we're faced with every single day: inflation, the cost of living, the cost of daycare, the cost of gas, the cost of housing. I mean, we're in a serious mess here in California, especially to be one of the largest GDPs in the state, and I think in the world.
Okay. So just two other questions I wanted to ask real quick. So like if I'm watching the news and I see, like you said, the tents and people talking about homeless people just going to the bathroom on the street like it's no big deal, it just happens. Is that slanted, or would you say that's very realistic?
No, that's real. My office is in a really, really nice location in the business district of Gardena, and there's an abandoned building literally right next door that they're supposed to be tearing down, and it's a lot of homeless people. I can like literally walk out my office and show you homeless people, drugs, paraphernalia, and crap all over the ground.
Okay. I did read somewhere, I only found it on one source. I forgot, so please excuse me. But I believe the governor of California, I believe he was interviewed or talking about it, about California potentially going on its own and creating its own, I guess you could say, a California universal health care.
Yeah.
What do you think about? Do you think that's a good idea or bad? Or
I think it's a terrible idea, and the reason why is because it's not a universal healthcare plan for Californians or Americans. It's for illegals. California has given illegals everything. They've given them stimulus checks. They've given them, safe housing, passage to come here illegally. Now they're getting free healthcare. I can think of a lot of Americans, a lot of senior citizens, a lot of veterans who can use that same money to get back on their feet or even to live. People who have actually paid dues into the American or California tax system. The illegals have no skin in the game. They come here and they get everything for free. Why? That's the biggest question. Why is it that they're, being incentivized to break federal laws? If I break a law, doesn't matter if it's federal or state, or even, some type of local municipality code, I'm going to jail. I'm going to get fined. But these people are literally breaking federal laws and they're getting rewarded for it here in California. So no, I don't think that that's a great idea. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of anything that Gavin Newsom is doing right now.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, you're in California. I grew up in Queens, New York, and sometimes I wonder, if I would move back to New York, if I were to go to California, how would I survive? So what? Anything else you wanted to share about the economy, as far as how people are getting by?
I we're struggling out here. I'm telling you, I drive a pickup truck and gas is like 5.59, and that's for the cheap stuff at Arco.
Okay.
And
Okay.
we're struggling. We need new leadership, and we need new leadership bad. We need people to wake up and start voting for something different. Even if you don't vote Republican, vote for a new Democrat, please. Anything to make California at least move forward a smidget, it will help us a lot.
Okay. And I did read that you're going up against Ted Lieu. That's
Yes.
who you're going up against. I think he's been in. This would be what, his second or third term he's in right now.
I don't know. I think he's been in about 14 or 15 years.
Has it been that long? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel about going up against Ted Lieu?
I don't feel any type of way about going against Ted Lieu. The majority of the people who I speak to in the district, they don't want to talk about Ted Lieu. They want to talk about the issues. It's apparent that people have voted Democrat for a very long time, obviously because the state is blue, and they want something different. So I haven't wasted too much time talking about Ted Lieu or entertaining the idea of running against Ted Lieu. I think my race is against the people and against the challenge of getting in touch with as many people in the district as possible, finding out what their issues is, so we can collaborate and come up with solutions that's going to benefit people in the 36th congressional district.
Okay. I did notice you had once, I believe, went up against Maxine Waters in a race.
Yes.
And then of course you got Nancy Pelosi, who's also in California, and I know that both of them have been in way more than 20 years in Congress. Any certain way you feel about them and the work they've been doing in California?
I don't know what work that Maxine Waters and Nancy Pelosi has been doing in California, but I do know that they've made their family extremely rich. I ran against Maxine Waters last election cycle, and that lady is a nut job in real life. It's not just TV. I think she's worse in person than she is on TV. I mean, she paid gang members to, come harass us at our events last election cycle, almost every single event. Our office has been vandalized on a regular basis. And the only reason why I'm not running against her this election cycle is because of the redistricting. However, with the things that happened last election cycle, we do still have an election integrity lawsuit in the courts today, because there are a lot of things that happened during the last election cycle in Los Angeles County that can't be explained. And I think that, even if they don't do the whole entire county, I want my race revisited, relooked at. I want the signatures verified, the addresses verified of the voters. I want to make sure that people who are eligible to vote were the only people who were voting in this election cycle. I don't mind losing, but I mind getting cheated, and that's where I'll lay my stand on that one.
Okay, so do you feel during 2020, when COVID-19 was at its height, there were a lot of ballots manipulated in that 2020 election?
Not necessarily the ballots being manipulated, but I think there were a lot of people who were voting for other people who may or may not have been in California, who may or may not have still been alive. And I think there were a lot of illegals who voted in these elections as well, because they don't really check IDs here in California when it's time to vote. So
Okay.
there are a lot of strange things that were going on, but election integrity is at the top of my things to get done list, as well as, fighting inflation and bringing down the cost of living.
Okay. Well, since you mentioned IDs, do you think an ID should be shown when someone goes to vote?
Let me tell you this. I think it should be just as hard to vote as it is to open up a bank account. That social security card or ITIN, if you are a green card holder, you should have an ID, two forms of identification, and you should have had to register to vote in said election. And if you haven't done that, then you don't need to vote, because clearly voting is not important to you. But just as hard it is to open up a bank account, I think it should be just as hard to vote.
Okay. So there are claims, so I figured I'd ask you, do you think having to show an ID is in any way, hurting people who are Black or Hispanic from being able to vote?
No, Blacks and Hispanics, look, if you can buy alcohol and cigarettes and Jordans and marijuana and everything that pleasures you, then you can, keep that same energy when it's time to vote. But I think people a lot of times confuse convenience or lack thereof with racism, and that's just not the case.
Okay. And you also briefly did touch on a little bit when you said, hey, if you're not going to vote Republican, at least pick a new Democrat. So does that mean
Hmm.
you're in favor of term limits?
Absolutely in favor of term limits. I mean,
Okay.
you look at Joe Biden, he's been in office, it's going on 51 total years from the time he's been in the Senate, vice president, and president. And he's a failure, to be honest with you. He was a failure as a senator. He's still a failure now. He has done nothing to improve the lives of Americans. Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, all of the politicians, who are extremely old. If you've been there more than 20 years, you got to go.
Okay.
You're no longer fighting for the American people. You're fighting for your self-interest.
So what would you say? Like I said, you're running for Congress, so that would mean, every 2 years, you're right, as a
Mm-hmm.
congressman. How many times do you think you should be able to run? If you get, you got elected, how many more times do you think you should be able to run?
I think that in Congress and the Senate, 12 years, 12
Okay.
years tops. That's two terms in the Senate, and that's 6 times a run in Congress. I think after that, that's you move on to run for president or vice president, or you call it quits or move back to your city municipalities and try to do something there. But even then, I think 4 to 6 years on a local level was good enough.
Okay. So roughly 20 years max for the most part at the federal level. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And there's a lot of other stuff that's been going on. I know, like I said, you're in California. So what has been the buzz or what you've been hearing about, Roe v. Wade being overturned?
I think that, people are really upset about Roe v. Wade, and they're upset because they're not informed. I think that it's like unfounded outrage or fake anger is what I like to call it. People get emotionally driven about any type of situation. People think that abortion is healthcare or some type of pregnancy prevention, and it's not. Abortion is extremely dangerous. Um, I'm indifferent about Roe v. Wade being overturned just because of how the entire case played out. It had absolutely nothing to do with abortion. It had everything to do with the right to privacy, because we know, we'll call her Jane Doe. We know she lied about being raped by black men, and she wanted to keep that a secret. And the fact of the matter is, she didn't even have an abortion at the end of the day. She just wanted to keep the identity of the people who she had the baby by a secret. And I think people need to know that. And so it was about the privacy protection. It wasn't about abortion. I would never support a bill that gave United States taxpayers dollars to abortion clinics. I feel that I'm pro-life. Abortion is wrong, but if you want to do it, pay for it yourself. And that's something that you got to deal with God whenever or if ever you make it to those pearly white gates.
Right. Okay. Okay. So you're not necessarily think. Do you think it should be more of a decision state by state, or do you think there should be a federal law across the board?
I think that that's the tricky part, right? So even if it's a federal decision or a state decision, the decision is not to legalize abortion or make it illegal. The decision is to fund abortion clinics or use tax dollars to help people subvert their responsibilities by getting an abortion. I think that's where the real issue falls. Most people don't want to pay for another person's abortion. Like pay for it yourself. I don't think that you can make any type of constitutional amendments to make abortion illegal or make it funded or not funded. However, you can codify it. Abortion is murder. Defining when life begins, if it begins at contraception or if it begins a couple of weeks after or what have you. It's up to any doctors or experts to decide. However, the way to go about making abortion illegal is to codify it through a code that says, abortion is murder if the heartbeat or conception is where we're going to, assume life is started.
Okay. Now, of course, here's another obviously hot topic you see in the news. It comes and goes. Is about the argument over firearms and what should be regulated and what not should be. And then you got people say that we need less guns, and you got people say we need more guns. And if there were more guns, this wouldn't have happened. But we don't want the wild, wild west either. So where do you stand on California when it comes to firearms?
I'm pro 2A. I'm constitutional carry, no license. We're not registering any guns. I am pro to the death of me. However, I do believe that if you want to purchase a firearm, those qualifications need to be extremely stringent. I think the background checks, the mental health checks, they need to be enforced. They need to be enforced on not just a state level, but a federal level, and a level from your medical history. It's absolutely important. We can't continue to have people who have mental health issues getting their hands on firearms. Also, with that being said, we have to ensure that our law enforcement agencies are doing everything that they can, everything that they're supposed to be doing to ensure that people who have some type of contact with law enforcement are being either followed, vetted, or ensure that they can't get their hands on a gun to cause harm. Because I think that, if I'm not mistaken, in every single mass shooting that we've had, every single shooting period, the murderer has had some type of contact with law enforcement on multiple occasions. Now that definitely got to stop, and we cannot subvert the responsibility from the law enforcement agency who are contracted or are duly constituted to watch those type of things, to have that pushed off their plate and put the responsibility solely on the community or the police force who are interacting as an active shooter situation.
Okay. All right, Joe. I know we talked about a lot today, so I guess my last question is if there's anything else you want to share about you, Joe Collins, that when people go and vote, what do you want them to know about you? So when they vote for you, or if they don't vote for you, they could say, hey, I didn't vote for him because he's this or he's that, or I voted for him because of who he is. So what do you want people to know about you?
The most important thing I want people to know about me is, I never make a decision by myself. I think that a collaborative effort is what's needed right now to make decisions, to give everybody an opportunity to be heard. And when I get voted into office, you got to believe that, the people who are being represented by me in the 36th congressional district, your voice will be heard in Washington, D.C. And I'll make sure to bring those issues to you. When I get to Washington, D.C., although I am a Republican, I understand that the obligation is to represent everyone in the community, both Democrats, Republicans, independents, or whatever political party perspective that you decide to identify as. And those are the things that I'm bringing to the table. I think that we need more people listening to the whole entire group instead of leaning extremely right or extremely left.
Okay. Well, Joe, we appreciate you coming on today. That looks like we're going to wrap things up today. Thank you, viewers, for checking in on us. And now a word from our sponsors.